Alright, welcome back to More Than Peaches Gaming. I'm your host, Mune, and today we're going to take on a fun dungeon, which some people wouldn't consider it fun. We are taking on the one and only Castle Never. So this dungeon does require you an item level of 2000 or more. It requires a tank, a healer, and and 3 DPS. For the party setup, I definitely recommend at least one tank and one healer. Now, you don't necessarily have to have a healer if you don't want one. I ran this dungeon without a healer of any kind before. It is a little bit harder, but just a heads up, it is Castle Never. The first time you do it is always the hardest, usually. Um, we're ignoring the requirements because we have two tanks instead of just the one. Um, it's me and a Guardian fighter. I think we'll do fine. And then one other note that you should be aware of is that we will be running through this dungeon a lot faster than you typically would with a regular party or a pickup group, mainly because we have a higher DPS output. Um, the dungeon will take us, I'm going to say, probably about 15 minutes. And it tells us that the estimated time is 30. So just a heads up. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into that. So the first things first, when you get in here, take your pick on which potion you want to use. Since we have another tank, I'm just going to go ahead and use a force one. Uh, it does not really matter which one that you choose. Generally, if you don't have another tank, I highly recommend the defensive one. But at the same time, I realize that I have my coin and another tank and people who are using the Wheel of Elements, where I can pick up the additional defense by hitting the earth. So the additional power is needed. So after you clear out the first group, it's usually a great idea with that first group to just move in with your tank and then have all the DPS kind of crowd around them, and then jump back on your mount and run in here as soon as you can. Uh, Once you get in here into the foyer, there will be a gaseous thing here where you have to initiate to go in. This is a bridged area. As far as I know, you cannot be knocked off the edge. It spawns quite a big group of zombies, which isn't that big of a deal usually. And then these things will open up and enemies will spawn at both ends of the bridge. You get the Barlugura. Sorry, I cannot say these guys' names. And some demons, more or less. They're all demons. Quickly dispatch them and move on if you can. The next room will have 5 portals that are identical. Generally, you want to send one person to every portal, but if you're not strong enough because you are a healer or a tank, you might want to team up with a DPS or two. Luckily for me, I'm powerful enough on my own to kind of take these guys down a notch. I'm going to go ahead and use this and that and my daily. I feel like I'm okay strong when it comes to these, so I can clear it kind of quickly. And when you've cleared it, you'll go back to the room that you entered the portal with, and then when all of the rifts are complete, the door will allow you to push forward. I'm waiting for this person to push forward. Alright, so, good old agony. When you walk in here, there's a few groups of enemies. I highly recommend when you first go in to definitely use Templar's Wrath and some kind of defense increaser, because they're going to hit you hard. The last group is this larger, what is that, Naufal Shini, and two of these Zythars. And then the bonfire will spawn after you defeat them, and then you will prep for the boss battle. Alright. Always prepare that this boss will catch you off guard. Sometimes it'll tether you right from the get-go, so be aware that it can start with some agonizing crap associated with it. Like, I hate being tethered. Another thing is, if he targets you with a red circle, it will stun you. Likewise with the path. And then there is the other enemy that's creating a straight line damage because of how they're moving throughout the area. The straight path will always be straight from here to there. And the idea is, as a tank, your role is to make sure that the enemy does not face the DPS. So generally you want the DPS to be on one side and the tank on the other. And you want to make sure that the cleric is over with the DPS. Okay? Or the healer, or whoever you got. After such, there is a religion kit right around the corner over here, though you don't necessarily have to pick it up. It's right there. The problem with this dungeon is there aren't that many, like, shortcuts, if any at all. It's pretty straightforward. There'll be groups of enemies that appear in here, and then a larger demon that is further down. You will need to rush in and use Templar's Wrath to stay alive with Circle of Power. This guy is pretty big, and when you defeat him, he will explode. There is officially a chest at the end of this hallway. It is not a mimic, but it generally doesn't have anything good in it, so I would just skip it and move on with your group. So again, we have another turn into groups of enemies. Well, the Servitor of Orcus, the enemy that's clear in the back of these groups, there are 4 groups in total. If you do not kill the Servitor quickly, they will tether you with another player, and it will hurt. So as you can see over here, there's a treasure chest and a religion kit and another treasure chest. You don't necessarily have to open them. I'm not going to bother. Again, no mimics. In here you'll have another servitor in the back, as well as some minions. Nothing too fancy, but you have to defeat each of the groups to actually progress further. To the right is the bonfire, and then we're moving on to the next section, which is this big rift. This rift must be gone through to proceed to the next boss. So the objective in this rift is to defeat all the enemies before they actually enter the center. This builds off of what is expected for the final boss with Orcus. Because there is a phase of Orcus that he can go into where you basically have to do this exact thing. We're already about halfway through our objective, which is great. 3/4. It's because we know what we're doing, and we're pretty powerful. Okay, we did that very well. No charge at all. So, Again, if you have a powerful enough party, it just goes smoothly. Otherwise, if you are a uh, paladin like I am of protection, you need to bane them, and then Templar's Wrath to give your stun out to kind of keep them from walking any further. So it is kind of tricky the way it works. But that's just how it goes. The bonfire at the top of the stairs, and then we have the door. There isn't anything actually around the stairs, so don't worry about checking it out or the like. Just kind of climb them as quickly as possible with your party. So this guy actually has a few mechanics. As you can kind of see, the ceiling has spikes on it, and when you're fighting him, what he will do periodically is he will flip, is what we call it, is where he focuses the room to make you appear to fight on the ceiling. If you kill him fast enough, you can actually do this without having him flip even once. It's called a no flip. It's only happens when you have high DPS. There really isn't anything noteworthy in this room, though, after you defeat him. No treasure chest or the like. It's kind of sad. So, but yeah, and if you are on the ceiling in that last boss battle, when you kill him, he will he will flip again upon his death. These rooms, the reason why I'm hugging the wall is if you don't, you will wake up enemies. It's waking up the undead, and you'll have to fight them before being able to proceed. I've just made it to the rest of my party. I don't know what's going on. I think we have to back up a little bit because the game didn't indicate that we are all here. Okay. So, next part is the death ball running down this thing. You can technically follow it and just go into the door. That's what I'm probably going to do rather than trying to rush it. If some classes can simply run through it because they're powerful enough. I can run through it. It looks like somebody's companion just decided to go draw all of the enemies. I don't know whose companion that is. It's one with a hammer. It's not my companion. My companion is a con artist. So, no shoot. Let's see. So, this corner is pretty much safe if you're walking through here. You can also use one of the inlets on the map before this room. Usually when you come in here, there are a few enemies. You might want to consider, you know, running in as a group after the ball, rather than trying to go to fight them alone and fight in the corner. So, just a heads up. So, we've already made it to the boss. The boss is tricky, okay? I have a very specific way I tank him. I go in and I use Templar's Wrath. You will see that here in a moment. Immediately, and then I will bane the enemy, as well as using my daily for Shield of Faith, putting up a circle of power and the like. So, as you can kind of see, my party is being gung-ho about this. So, as you see, all my abilities are going off. I made sure to use my artifact to reduce some damage and heal me just in case. And that was very quick. There are additional phases that you should be aware about. I'm just going to pass on that. I don't really care. The additional phases that will occur is he will raise up his hands to deal damage. That will hit the entire party, and in the process, it will either tether two people or cause the balls that we had passed previously to come out and randomly hit people. They will just kind of wander around the battlefield, and usually like 2 to 3 of them. Um, Another phase that he will go into is he'll fly up in the air and you'll create that round circle and in the middle, and you'll have to prevent enemies from going in it while he is uh, occasionally attacking people on the ground. And then another phase he will go through is he will open up portals and he will take significantly less damage. And you can go in the portals to get rid of them. But if you're in the portals while the boss is killed, you'll not get credit for clearing the dungeon. So just a heads up, those are the main phases. Um, Generally, when he is leaving or returning from those phases, he does do a big attack to the entire party. So just a heads up that you need to be on the defensive when you are playing this. A good DPS can help run through this. I'm glad that I ran with so many people. At the end, you will have the option to use an epic dungeon key to open up a change thing. Okay, a Ring of Orcus +5. I've never had one of those, and a Bloodlord's Visage, which I think I've had one of these. And then on the right side is it requires a greater demonic key. Generally, you get like rank 8 enchantments, like the typical 4, which is Radiant, Dark, Azure, and Silvery. You can, however, get the Shard of Orcus wand from either one of the chests, but I've yet to ever see one come out of chest for me. So that is one negative part about running this dungeon so often. Typically, what you saw, what I get out of this chest was what you typically get. When you are done, you can go out the portal. I always like to kind of take a look at this room back here. It's just like, oh yeah, there's this room, and why does this exist? I mean, they could have just built a wall right here and called it good, but apparently they didn't. So just a heads up, that's something they did do. Another thing that I should note before I leave this dungeon is there is a weird altar way back here that you can pray to if you have religion or a religion kit. What it does is, oops, let's see if I can get it to show. Oops. Blessing of Joaquin. Monetary gains are increased by 5% for 3 minutes for each blessing you acquire to a maximum of 3. I don't know why this is here and why you can only access it after killing the boss. So, just a heads up, that does exist. Some people have speculated that's how you get better drops out of the chest, or out maybe killing any additional enemies that might be coming after you. So that is something to keep in mind. When you're done, just kind of try to exit. I'm waiting for a second. Come on. Okay, there it goes. But again, Castle Never typically takes a lot longer than what we ran it in. We beat him without him even doing his first thing. Generally, like when you're with a party, he will be able to do his first thing and with the balls or the tether, and you'll still be beating on him. You'll go to the second phase that he will do with the giant circle with killing enemies, and then he will return, and generally right after that is when most people kill him rather than any other time. So just a heads up, that is how it usually goes. We played more of an exception rather than an actual following the standard. Okay, so we are the exception. On another note, real quick, we did have a DC, so that's also why it went a little bit quicker. I remember when that dungeon was first being played by me, it was always, we need a DC. It was never we needed a healer. It was always a DC because they buff. But because of the way our party dynamic is, we have buffing quite well with our DC as well as with our control wizard. And then there's me who buffs our defense and lowers enemies' outputting damage and increases their incoming damage. So we had a lot going for us in that battle. As you kind of noticed, I didn't go down once. That was just what I did. In particular, was very well done. Worked out very well as a party. Our group dynamic is very well situated. So just kind of keep that in mind. Once you have a good party, try to always run with that good party, especially if they are wanting to improve their character. Me at this moment, I'm not worried about improving my character. I think my character is fine, though other people might say otherwise. I'm just gonna keep going with it. So hopefully this works out all well. Um, Hopefully this was very informational and very informative. And I hope you check out my other videos because a lot of them run a lot like this. Sometimes I take a little bit longer on my runs and go into a little bit more detail, but there's not a whole lot to Castle Never. There are a few secrets I did not actually go over, like the little enclave where uh, you get past the first two balls and encounter the third one. There is a switch you can hit to go get an additional treasure chest. Though it's not required to actually go after it, it is there in case you do. It's not generally anything good in it. Like I said, most of the treasure chests in these dungeons are pretty much garbage except for the last two. Okay, so just a heads up, they are pretty terrible things to go after, and I wouldn't waste my time with it. So, just a heads up, that does exist. So, check out my other videos. Maybe check out my channel. I have quite a few Neverwinter videos up right now. One for pretty much almost every dungeon in the game. I still need to do a few more, but still working on those. So, just a heads up, they are there. Check them out. Thanks.